Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to VRChat Avatars 101. I am Kuropper, but I also go by Kuro or Shiro. So today we will be covering the getting started with it, the tools used, texturing, toggles and parameters, and finally, and last but not least, we're going to be uploading it to VRChat and showing you how you can test your avatar and such. So due to time constraints and such, I will not be able to go through everything. So I have another panel that's going to be starting up shortly after this one, 102, that's going to be covering some of the more advanced topics. So first off, we have the three paths of avatar development. Each one has its own pros and cons as well as cost. So the first one, which is the most popular, is to go on a place like VRC Arena, Patreon, Gumroad, or something like that, and download a base avatar. And then you can texture paint and customize as much as you like. And this will run you somewhere between $0 to $100+ depending on whatever tools and base you like to use. You also have the option of making it from scratch, which is the most personal option. And the only downside with that is the fact that you have to do everything yourself. So it's not really the most beginner-friendly, unless, of course, if you want to go through it, then yeah, of course, go for it. But there are plenty of tutorials out there to get you started. And then the last one is to commission a custom model or texture, which for you would be the easiest. But that would run you around like 100 to 500+, depending on what artists you commission or how much work you want them to do. So today we're going to be going over how to create an avatar working with an avatar base. So a few prerequisites is that for VRChat, you need an account with a trust rank of at least new user. You cannot use a VRChat, like a brand new VRChat, with a trust rank of visitor, else you're going to, it's not going to let you to try and combat spam and trolls. You also need an avatar base of your choice, which we will go over how you can find one. And then you also have Unity, which Unity is the game engine that VRChat was built on, and as such, we also need this tool to make the avatar. And then, if you want to do any customization or texture painting, you want to use Blender or Adobe Substance Painter. Today, for this panel, I'm going to be using Substance Painter. And for an optional thing, you need any props and such you'd like to add. So I know what you're thinking. Is this your first time using Unity? Don't worry. Unity is, in my opinion, and from personal experience, by far one of the easiest and most beginner-friendly engines I've ever seen. And I will do my absolute best to explain everything as I go. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions if you're confused. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first thing you want to do is, when you log into VRChat, you want to go ahead and click on download. And then you want to download the Creator Companion, which will download that. You go ahead and install it. And then once that is done, it will walk you through creating your Unity account, getting your personal license, which don't worry is free, and as well as getting the correct version installed and everything. So after you do that, you want to open up your VRChat Creator Companion. For me, it did not go through the tour since I already set it up. So you want to go to Create New Project, click that, click on Avatar Project, give the project a name, which I'm going to call it DenFur 23, and then choose a project location. I currently have it set to my desktop. Then click on Create Project. It will go through real quick and create your project folder for you. And here you can add any additional packages you'd like. But once you're ready, go ahead and click on Open Project. And it will open a blank Unity project for you. So it's going to take a little bit to import. It will depend on the speed of your processor. So while we wait for it to load, let's go ahead and pull up a base. So a good resource for finding a base is a site called VRC Arena. It's vrcarena.com. So when you go here, you go ahead and click on Browse Avatars. And here you have a whole list of avatar bases. There are pages and pages and pages of these. And if you're looking for a specific species, you can click on Browse by Species, and there's a bunch of different things you can use, such as, what looks good? Hey, how about otters? So you have that, and then you have all these different things. So not all of these are free. There are certain things you can click on or look. So if you see a $sign here, that means it's paid. If you see a $sign with a cross through it, that means it's not paid. It's free. So some of these would take you to various places like Gumroad or Patreon, such as like this one is from Gumroad. There's also another site called Booth. I do not have any experience with Booth, so I can't really help you with that, unfortunately. And yeah, keep in mind, VRC Arena, while it is a pretty large list, it is not an exhaustive list. So there are definitely some bases and such out there that are not indexed by Booth. You're going to have to do some Google searching if you do not find one. You may or may not also find an avatar that's exactly to your liking. So that's why you have programs like Blender and such that you can use to customize. So moving forward, looks like we have our Unity project open. So right here, you have your base project. You have your viewport right here. You have your hierarchy, as well as an inspector, which will give you any properties and such as you click on things in the hierarchy. And you have your asset browser down here. So what you want to do is once you get your base, so today, for the sake of this, I'm going to be using a WickerBeast base. So I'm going to click on Assets, move your cursor to Import Package, click on Custom Package, and then you go to wherever you have your WickerBeast. And you want to import the correct package for your base. So I'm going to be opening the PC package and not the Quest package. So go ahead and import that. It will show a window which lists all the assets here that is in the package. You want to make sure they're all selected. If they're not all selected, you can just go ahead and click on this button on the bottom left here that says All, and then click on Import. It will take a little bit to import, again, because it has to import into the engine and convert and everything. It will depend on the speed of your processor. And some of these do take a little bit. So fortunately, with this specific base, it does not take too long, but I've had bases take like upwards of like 30 minutes to import. So now, what you want to do is you want to try and look for a scene. So a scene is basically like a map or a level in a video game. Where the scene is located will depend on what package you use. So for this specific one, it's under Wicker and then click Me. So moving around here, and by the way, you just double click to go here, you can hold right click and drag your mouse to move the camera around. You also can use WASD while you're holding the right mouse button to move around. If the camera's too slow, you come up here and you can drag this slider down here under camera speed. You can make it like really fast, or you can make it really slow. Like right now, it's barely even moving. So for most of these have a little credit screen for any resources and such. And then most packages have like different variants available left and right here. And yeah, so going here, you have your VRC avatar descriptor that this basically tells VRChat that, hey, it's an avatar and it should have these things and everything like that. You also have your pipeline manager, which tells VRChat who this avatar belongs to. So going through here, you have some other things. So first off, when you want to go ahead, right-click that, unpack prefab completely. It's usually a good opportunity or a good practice here. So adding stuff to the thing, like such as props, you can go ahead, right-click, 3D object, and then let's just add a cube here. And then to go through the tools, there is a little toolbar on the top left of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and click the scale tool so that way we can scale it down so it's not like huge. like that. And then Unity has a very nice parenting system, so anything that moves that's a parent of an object will move relative with it. So let's say we want to add this cube as a little toggle to our hand. So we want to go through here and click on the armature. This basically tells the 3D engine what parts of the model should move depending on what bone should move, kind of like the skeleton in your body. So you want to click on these little arrows here to expand. So I'm going to go through hips, spine, chest. The armature order always goes from hips up and downwards, so it's typically pretty easy to follow. So I'm going to go for shoulder R, arm R, right forearm, and then right wrist, and then here's your fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this cube right here. I'm going to drag it over under the wrist. And then I'm going to go here, select the move tool, and then move it over to the hand. And then to test it, I'm going to go ahead and click the play button to enter play test mode. And then I'm up here, I'm going to click on scene. If you're under game, chances are you might see a message that says no cameras rendering. That is just fine, that's okay. No need to worry. So just click on scene. And then right here, I'm going to move the shoulder, or actually I'm going to move the arm around. I'm just going to click on the middle thing so I can free move it. And as you can see, pardon the weird movement here, you can see the cube is attached to the arm. If I move the entire thing, if I move the entire base, the cube is still attached to it. As you can see, this base also has dynamic bones, or physics bones as VRChat calls it, so the tail and the ears move along with it. Now, something to keep in mind with Unity, it is imperative that you keep in mind this. So, you want to make absolute certain that you are not in playtest mode when you are making any further edits. So let's say I make some edits here, I'm going to move this base up here, and then as soon as I exit out of playtest mode by clicking this, all the edits that I made since entering playtest mode are now gone. So you have no idea how many times this has happened to me in my early days of using Unity. It is not a fun experience at all. So just make sure of that. So taking a little break from certain things, let's go ahead and do some texturing. So I'm going to go ahead and open my model here. Most, if not all, models come with a substance painter file. And you can use Blender to do this if you want. It is not always it works, but it's not always recommended due to how clunky it is or other things like that. It's not always the most beginner-friendly software. And starting out here, I want to try and, that's my avatar that I'm going to be using next thing. This is what a texture file looks like. That's the credits. Right here. Yeah, so you have various maps like this. This is your normal map, your bump map, or that's basically the same thing. A spec map, but yeah, this is the main color map right here. You can see it is basically just like this. It's a bit difficult to edit with a regular editor like Photoshop, Paint.net, GIMP, whatever, which is why programs like Substance Painter exists. Unfortunately, Substance Painter is not the cheapest program out there. There are various ways of getting it, such as if you're a college student, Adobe will give you a free license to it. You can get it on Steam, but you'll quit receiving updates when the next year's edition comes out, unfortunately, or you can get the Creative Cloud All Apps or Substance Painter subscription, which if you're only making one avatar, I suggest getting the Creative Cloud All Apps thing, just paying for 1 month. It's a lot cheaper and will save you a lot of money. So double click this, Substance Painter will open up. It will take a little bit since it is a pretty large program. And most likely, I'm going to close that, you'll get a little warning here that says you created the project with an old version of Substance Painter. The software will now upgrade your project. If you save your changes, you will no longer be able to work with this project with an old version. So it's basically saying that if you save the project, you will no longer be able to open it with an older version because it has now converted the project file to the current version that Substance Painter accepts. So you can go ahead and click on OK. It will open the file. It will also take a little bit to go through here. So then you have your model here, which you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. You can hold Alt and then the scroll wheel to pan around. You can also hold Alt and move your mouse around to zoom in and out, or you can hold the left click to rotate it. And then you have your standard texture right here. So we want to edit the body texture for now. You can see how the texture works. So now I'm going to go through here, edit some of these color regions, and I'm going to need some assistance with this because this is not my avatar that I'm making myself. This is an avatar I'm making for the convention during this panel. So my first question for all of you, what color should the inside of the mouth be? All right, I hear yellow, purple, lime green, and blue. So we're going to take it to a vote. Raise your hand for purple. Raise your hand for lime green. Raise your hand for blue. I think purple wins. Yeah, so you want to click on the color here. Go right here under base color. You can click that and then select your color like this. You can use the right hand slider for the actual color, the left hand for the color temperature, like how white you want it or how dark you want it, things like that. Once you're satisfied with it, click on the X button. So now moving along, what color should the claws be? All right, I'm hearing green, yellow, and red. Raise your hand for green. Raise your hand for yellow. Raise your hand for red. I feel like yellow won that one. So I'm going to go here, set it to yellow. And yeah, so if you played like a really popular or really large MMO game, you might be familiar with something like this. It's basically like the standard character customization. Question? So to color the claws individual colors, you're going to want to use a paint layer. Really kind of depends on how the person set up the program or set up the file. But you can go ahead and click on the paint layer. And then you want to make sure that's above that, and then you can select a color, let's say red for now, and then let me adjust the size up here, top left, near the thing, and you can paint onto it. I'm sure there's better ways to do it, but yeah, you can paint a claw like that if you'd like, or you can probably use some stencil or something. You kind of really have to go through the file and make sure that try and see like how the artist set it up initially. Yeah, you can. So there's a feature in Substance Painter called symmetry, which is up here. Not up here. Yeah, so there's a little button in Substance Painter for you to toggle on and off the symmetry. I do not see it here. It's not where I usually see it. They probably moved it. But for symmetry mode, there is a little red line that goes down the avatar. And that lets you know that's in symmetry. So whatever you do on one side, it will mirror to the other. I'm not sure if this layer right here is used at the moment, so I'm just going to toggle that off because I do not see any changes here. Are the outlines used? No, they do not seem to be used. A lot of these are not used. All right. For the second layer, which is the belly right here, and such that I am causing it to flash right now. Oh, wait, hold up. By the way, your symmetry's up here. I was not looking in the correct spot. You can see the red line right here, like I was saying. So what color should this color region right here that's flashing be? I cannot do rainbow, but I'm mostly hearing orange. I mean, I can do rainbow, but for timing's sake, I am unable to do rainbow. So yeah, so how about a neon orange like this? Now for your secondary color, which is the outlines of the belly. All right, yellow and brown. Raise your hand for yellow. Raise your hand for brown. Brown wins by a huge majority. Okay, yeah, and brown's kind of a funky color to make, so it might not be perfect. This is probably the best I can get. All right, and now how about the actual main color of the actual fur? I am hearing green, so gonna click that, go here. Gonna set it to green, that's kind of bright. Gonna darken, how about we darken it a little? And yeah, that's a pretty good avatar right here, not gonna lie. Gonna rotate it around a bit. Yeah, so far this is pretty decent, not gonna lie. So, so now for the eyes, how about the, what pupil color should it be? All right, I'm hearing white, black, and cyan. Raise your hand for white. Raise your hand for black. Raise your hand for cyan. Cyan wins by a huge shot. These are already cyan. How about the other part, like right here? All right, I'm hearing purple. Yeah, let's make it a light purple. This is a little bright. How does this look? Lighter? What about now? Already sounds good. And then for the miscellaneous parts, which would be the color of the tongue, the color of the teeth. I don't know, these claws things don't seem to really be, oh yeah, the claws on the feet. You have the webbing, eyebrows, there's a huge amount of things like the paw pads, or as a lot of people call it, beans, horns, and the fluff. Should we change the color of the teeth? Alrighty, I hear him no, so what about the tongue? I'm hearing yellow, purple, and no change. Yeah, so how about raise your hand for no change, keep it blue as is. Raise your hand for yellow. Raise your hand for purple. How about yellow? How it said like that. And then moving along. Claws. What color should these be? All right, I'm hearing several people saying yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. That's the emissive color. Don't want emissive color. So for emissive, it's basically for an emission map. So what that does is it makes your avatar glow in the dark, that specific color when it's in a dark space. Yeah, we'll cover emissions more in 102. Yeah, I'll be going more in depth in toggles and sliders and such in 102. Yeah, so another thing with this avatar here is you have webbing in between the fingers. We are almost done texturing this. Should we change the web color or green? All right, I just really heard green, so I'm gonna keep it that. How does this shade look? Cool. Then we have our eyebrows up here, which are currently white. What should these be? All right, I heard orange, dark blue, and dark green and purple. Raise your hand for purple. Dark blue, dark green, orange. I feel like purple won this one. So I'm going to set these to purple. And then how about our paw pads or the beans? Moving this over here real quick. These are currently not shown down here. I heard purple and I heard pink. Raise your hand for purple. What about pink? Majority wins. Purple. Oh, and another thing here that I forgot to mention is you also have a color picker right here. It looks like an eyedropper on the bottom right-ish of the color selector. You go ahead and click that. It will bring up a little color picker, and then you can go ahead and click on a part of the screen to set your thing as that color. It is very useful if you want to get a matching color. So we have two more things left to color. So we have horns, and we also have the fluff. Though real quick here, I should also set the emission color to purple as well, so it doesn't look weird in the engine. So the horns texture has two different colors for a gradient. So let's currently focus on the main color. What color should the main one be? I heard yellow and I heard white. Raise your hand for yellow. Raise your hand for white. How about yellow? So I'll set this to yellow. And what about the gradient? What would look good with the gradient? I heard white and I heard green. Raise your hand for white. Raise your hand for green. I believe white won this one. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to white. And last but not least, we have the fluff. The fluff also has a weird gradient. So base color, what should this one be? I heard black and I heard orange. Raise your hand for black. Raise your hand for orange. Let's do black. And then how about the, we just made the gradient. All right, yeah, so this is weird. So anyway, so for this color, what should this one be? I heard light blue, pink, and orange. Raise your hand for light blue. Raise your hand for pink. Raise your hand for orange. Yeah, orange won this one. Yeah, so by combining these two colors, we now got this really cool looking gradient here. It is also, it's not currently set to emissive, but I can make it emissive if you like, which I do right here. And yeah, so we should be good to go with that. So now that we have our avatar all textured up here, this is all we have to do for now. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and click on File. You want to go down to Export Textures. The default setting should be fine, but you might also want to set your output directory. I'm going to put it under on my desktop here. You're going to hit Select Folder. And yeah, like I said, this should be already set up and ready for you to export. Just go ahead and click on Export right here. It will take a little bit depending on what brushes you use, because this is basically Photoshop for texturing. You might get a base with like a generative fur brush. It also depends on your resolution, and it basically has to render everything out. It's almost like cycles in Blender, but it doesn't take that much power, doesn't take too long. So when you have your blue text here that says what files that have been exported, you're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and close this stuff. Here is our texture that we made. And here is our so here is our base. For some reason, it did not export the entire thing. You have to make sure that you click on these. I make this mistake all the time. So export it again. Successfully exported. We have pretty much now flooded my desktop. Here's the eyes. Here is the miscellaneous parts that we've textured. So now in Unity, we want to go to where the textures are located. So an easy way to figure out where they're located, you can just go ahead and click on Body, expand your shader right here on the right side of the screen, and then you can go ahead and click on the actual texture. It will show you where in the project file it is. So in the File Explorer, what you can do is you can go ahead and click on that. And then I'm going to click on the topmost one, hold Shift, click the bottom one to select them all, and then I'm going to drag them into Unity. So our textures are now loaded in. So currently, Unity is set to get downscaled to 2048 by 2048. If you're using a 4K or an 8K resolution texture, you want to make sure that it is the correct resolution. So I'm going to go ahead and double check what the resolution of this texture is. I'm going to go ahead and click on Properties, go to Details. This is a 4K texture under Dimensions. So I'm going to set this to 4K, hit Apply, let it re-import. And then right here, this is a setting that is there, but not very many people know about or use. This one is called Use Crunch Compression. I highly recommend you turn this on, because if you leave it off, it's not going to compress your textures very much. Using crunch compression can save you many megabytes of your asset bundle. So because it's a lossy compression, I'm going to set the compression all the way to 100. You kind of want to get a middle ground here, but between it being like really small but not the most detailed on the far left, or the most detailed but maybe a little larger on the right at 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Apply. It's going to re-import this again. It may take a little bit longer as it crunches everything. Going to do the same thing here as well. Same thing with the eyes. Set this to 4K, use crunch compression, go all the way up, hit apply. Now we're ready to apply our texture. So go ahead and click on body. Here is our body texture. You want to click on your body texture in the asset browser, drag it and drop it over here where the texture slot is, and you can see it applies right there in the engine for you. Same thing with our miscellaneous and our eyes. I'm going to go ahead and shrink that, click on eye, and I'm going to drag and drop our texture here. And this one is using the same texture for emissions on the eyes, so they glow. So I'm going to drag that over here as well. The properties that show up on your shader will depend on what shader you are using. We will cover shaders more in 102. And after this one, last but not least, let's do the miscellaneous one. So drag and drop the miscellaneous texture in here, and we're pretty much done with texturing. So here's our avatar. And now, now what we have is going back to our cube here. We have this cube. It's a part of the avatar, but it's currently permanently fixed to the avatar. It's always going to be on. We don't really want that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and save this scene real quick. Hold Control, click S, make sure you save your work. I don't think Unity has an autosave. It might, but I can't quite remember. So you want to make an animation to turn this on and off. Contrary to popular belief, an animation is not just your just movement. It can be anything from like turning stuff on and off or changing properties at specific times, things like that. There's a lot of things you can do with an animation. So you want to go ahead, click on your avatar, and then go to your avatar descriptor. You want to expand the thing that says playable layers. And then you have your additive gesture and you have your FX layer. It is important that you remember what each layer is for. A gesture layer would be for skeletal movements like arm movements, fingers, things like that. And your FX layer should be for everything else. You can put skeletal movements in FX, but this is mostly just for organization. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the FX layer. And then it shows up right here in the hierarchy. And I'm going to drag it onto the avatar so you can see it applies on the avatar controller. Then I'm going to right-click, create animation. I'm going to name this cube on. And then I'm going to drag it over on here. So that way it applies to the layer. And now you want animator and you want animation shown. If you do not see these, you can actually let me close these real quick so that way I can show you how it's done. You want to go to window, then go to animation, and then animation. It will show up here as a standard window here. You want to click on your tab, drag it over right here. This is typically my workflow that I typically use. This is a modular design, so you're free to use whatever layout you want. I'm going to go ahead, go to animation, then animator. So I want to then go to the scene, and you can see we have our animation currently selected under cube on. If it isn't, you can go ahead and click that right there, and then you have your animation. This base has a lot of animations preset, but because we dragged and dropped our animation onto the base, it should already be there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Property, and then follow our armature. Try and remember where exactly it is. So I'm going to go to spine, then go to chest, shoulder right, arm right, forearm right, wrist R, or wrist dot right, cube, so here's our cube, and then here is active. So basically what is active is you have this check mark up here on the top right on the inspector. You can see right here as I turn it on and off, it shows, it hides it. This is the property that is called is active. It tells the engine whether it should keep track of it and show it or whether it should hide it. So because this animation just turns it on, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click on this keyframe right here. That's about 1 second out. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the delete key. And then for right here, I'm going to click on this keyframe, make sure that is active is selected. And then up here on the top right part of this screen, I'm going to click on the little diamond shaped thing with a plus, which tells Blender to add the keyframe. And then to preview it, you can see it is shown right there. So now that we have an animation that turns it on, we want an animation that turns it off. So I'm going to go to Create, Animation, right-click, Create Animation, and then I'm going to call it Cube Off. Going to drag it onto the base, click on it, go to Animation, and then we can select our Cube Off animation. And then we want to go through here and add the same property that we did before. It might be easier to duplicate your animation, but I didn't, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly go through here. And then is active right here. And do the same thing, delete this keyframe. Then, unlike the previous one, because this one is cube off, I'm going to click on this little checkbox right here that tells the engine to turn it off. Click on the Add Keyframe button, preview it, and as you can see, the cube is no longer shown. So with that being done, I'm going to go ahead and hide the cube, save the scene again, and then we want to configure our animator to use those animations. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Animator, and then go to Parameters. We want to hit the plus button. We want to add a Boolean parameter, also just called bool. So a Boolean is basically just whether it should be 1 or 0 or true or false or yes or no and things like that. You get the idea. So naming this, double click on it. I'm just going to call it cube toggle. And then I'm going to hit Control A and then Control C so that we can copy it. Then go back to layers. And we see we have our cube on here on the base layer for some reason. We don't really want that. So I'm going to go ahead, hold down left click to select those, hit the delete key. And then I'm going to hit this plus button, which will create a new layer. Double click this. I'm just going to call it cube. And Unity moved it so that way it's alphabetized. So going to have to, or it will move it. So actually, no, it doesn't. So we want to go ahead and click this little cogwheel thing that looks like a gear and move this weight all the way up. If you don't do this, it will not work. So after you do that, you go right here, you right click, create state, and then creates empty. So you have this new state here. Then I'm going to rename it up here on the top right in the inspector. I'm just going to call it off. And then for our motion, I will be going under the project. I'm going to drag the cube off motion over here. And I'm going to hit cube off. Now what we want to do next is we want to create another state. Call this one on. And then because this one's turning it on, I'm going to drag the cube on state and move it over here. So we have off and we have on. So now what we want to do, because we have the animator, which has these animations. It sees these animations, but it doesn't know what to do with them currently. So you want to go ahead and right-click on one of these, click on Make Transition, and then you can see here we have a little line with an arrow following our mouse. So we want to snap it to on. We want to do the same thing here, Make Transition, snap it to off. Then we want to click on the transition. So we have under Conditions, List is empty. We want to hit the plus button. And we have our conditions right here. These are all the parameters in this animator that we made. So I'm going to go ahead and search for the cube toggle. The search bar is on the very top here. Click on that. And make sure this is true. So this is basically saying turn the cube on when the parameter turns on. And then the same thing over here. Set it to cube toggle, turn it off, or set it to false, and we should be good to go with this animation. So now, what we want to do is we're going to preview it real quick. We're going to hit the play button, and make sure we're in scene view, move the camera downwards to where the hand is about. I'm going to then detach the animator, so that way it'd be easier to see. Going to go under parameters. As you can see here, Unity currently has it set to off. And then I'm going to turn the cube toggle on. And as you can see, Unity just turned the cube on. Going to turn the cube toggle off. Wait a little moment, and then Unity turns it off. So this is basically how VRChat works with parameters. It turns the toggles on and off as you play the game or use the menu. So now VRChat doesn't know about these parameters yet. They're currently not on the menu. We're going to go ahead and click on our menu right here under the Expressions tab of the avatar descriptor. We're going to click on the parameters. You're just going to click this and then double click it in the project assets. And we're going to make sure, real quick, that we have enough space. VRChat only syncs 256 bytes between everyone with an avatar, so make sure they are under that limit. If you are over that limit, change your parameters up a bit, reconsolidate. You may need to remove some stuff. So we're currently using 223 out of 256 parameters. We're going to add. We're going to click on add. And your new parameter will always be on the bottom. So we're going to Control-V, paste our cube toggle parameter that we copied earlier. Going to click on float. We're going to set it to Boolean. So right here. So this is our default. We have it set to saved, and we also have it set to synced. And then finally, we're going to be going into our menu here. Going to click on the main menu. And then you can either add a control. These are all controls. These are basically all what VRChat calls controls. We're going to call it submenus. Yeah, so these are basically set to submenus. I'm going to go ahead and add this cube to a submenu called Others, as you can see right here. So I'm going to click on the submenu parameter right here. You can see it highlighted in the inspector. And then we're going to go here. Then we're going to click on Add Control. So we have a new thing called New Control. We're going to name this Cube. We're not setting an icon. We do not currently have an icon here. And then for our parameter, we just scroll down, click on Cube Toggle, and then you can also name it a name if you like, which we're going to just call it Cube. Actually, no, we're not. It's not from the avatars, yeah, so just only use this menu. If you do not see your parameter on here, make sure it is in your parameters menu as seen right here on the bottom here. So now with that being said, we're pretty much all finished up here. We can now go ahead and start porting this to VRChat and see what it looks like. So we want to go to VRChat SDK, click on Show Control Panel, and you need to log in here, which I will do real quick. Go ahead and click on Sign In. Oh, great. Yeah, two-factor authentication. Let me grab my token real quick. All right. So remember when I said earlier you need an account with at least new user. If you do not have an account that says new user, like if you're a visitor rank or a brand new rank, you will see under both world creator and avatar creator stats, not yet allowed to publish. If you have an avatar that's at least new user, it will say allowed to publish worlds and allowed to publish avatars. If you do not have an account with that rank, don't worry, you will get there pretty soon. You just gotta hang out in public instances, making friends and just chatting and such. You'll get there pretty soon. It took me a couple hours, but it'll take however long it takes. You kind of have to be patient with it. So we're going to go under here, click on Builder, and here is our avatar right here. It will show whatever avatar that we have done or that we have made in the scene currently. We made this avatar right here. So you want to make sure that you fix any warnings or errors here. This avatar has bitmap textures without streaming bitmaps enabled. A lot of these you can just hit auto fix and it will fix it for you. You may need to re-import your textures, but it will fix it for you. Now you have a material on this avatar has custom shader keywords. Please consider optimizing it if using the shader keywords utility, which that one I'm going to ignore for now. It's not the biggest issue here. And then you have the angle between the pelvis and such. It's not the recommended thing. That's just by choice. That's just by how the avatar builder decided to set the pelvis. So I'm not going to worry about it. So then you have overall performance, medium. This will change depending on how many things you have on your avatar, how much VRAM your avatar takes, like how detailed your textures are, how high res they are, like especially if you're using 8K resolution. It'll also depend on how many polygons your avatar has. It's kind of like a photo. The more polygons, the higher detail the avatar is. Just like simply with a photo or video, the lower the resolution, the harder it'd be to see stuff. So if you're building and testing an avatar, you want to go ahead and click on Build and Test. If you are publishing your avatar to VRChat, you want to go ahead and click on Build and Publish for Windows, and then walk through the little steps there. It will go ahead and build your asset bundle. It'll say Bundling and Compressing Data. Test Avatar Built. So we go ahead and click OK. Then we want to go through Steam real quick. Steam is not open for some reason. This may take a little bit depending on how long Steam likes to take. Gonna go to library and then scroll down. VRChat update queued. Great. They must have just. Oh yeah, under today. They must have just put it here. Thankfully, it wasn't a very big update, so we're gonna go to click play, click and launch a desktop non-VR mode. Which, by the way, just want to say real quick, we do have a VR zone. If you want to actually play VR, you can go ahead and go there. Gonna wait for the easiest anti-cheat in the world to load. Loading, great, because I switched networks. Love you, VRChat. Yeah, so going into our home world here, wait for it to load. We see it connecting here. All right, now you want to go ahead and click on Escape, go to Avatars. If you're like me and you did a test avatar, go down here, click on Other, and then here's your test avatar. You can see our avatar is now in the game. So we want to change into the avatar, close this menu, and then let me see if I could find a mirror real quick. I don't have a personal mirror with me right now. This is already pretty, yeah, so you can see our thing is right here. The tail does clip through the model, but you can fix that with colliders and such. It is an art. It is not the easiest thing to do, setting up these physics bones, but it is an art. And then testing out our parameter here. Once you go to Others, click on Cube. You can see like our cube is there, which it is not persistent because we set it as a, we set our menu as a toggle, or I mean not a button, not a toggle. My apologies for this. The mistakes like this are part of the creative process. But yeah, so you get the idea. Close this real quick. You go to the SDK, show the control panel, and then build and test. So yeah, so besides that, we are pretty much done. So while I wait for this to load and then get into the game, does anyone have any questions? I'm going to open up for a Q&A real quick. Back there? I got the model from VRC Arena. So if you go through here, go to the avatars, and then I'm going to go for the Wicker Beast right down here. It is this model right here, which you can download from Google Drive. Any other questions? You over there? All right, what did you say? I'm familiar with avatars. Are you asking about also building worlds? Yeah, I'm also familiar with building worlds. I'm not hosting a panel on world building, but it's basically pretty similar to setting up a scene and building a world in Unity. There are plenty of tutorials out there that can help you get started. Anyone else? Don't currently see anything. All right, so we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. This is my avatar right here. It's invisible because encrypted, and I do not have the encryption key on this computer currently. So now well, something is all being messed up here. Yeah, my mouse is probably messing up or something. Does anyone have, so I'm going to stick around for like 5 more minutes or so, since we have about 5 more minutes left in this panel. Does anyone else have any questions? Over there? I may touch up on it depending on how much time I have. But yeah, colliders are not the easiest thing to do. And I haven't really messed around with colliders that much, unfortunately, but I'll try my best. All right. Well, I don't currently see any other questions here unless someone is holding their hand up and I can't really see it well because of a light. But yeah. Anyways, this has been it for VRChat Avatars 101. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you around.
Nothing left to hide.